fragments of uncertain location. These disasters, earthquakes and tidal waves, have been the subject of much discussion. Natural scientists make it their endeavor to attribute responsibility in such cases not to divine providence, but to certain natural circumstances determined by necessary causes, whereas those who are disposed to venerate the divine power assign certain plausible reasons for the occurrence, alleging that the disaster was occasioned by the anger of the gods at those who had committed sacrilege. This question I too shall endeavor to deal with in detail in a special chapter of my history. Tucasius, having founded Pallas and enclosed it with a fine wall, divided up and apportioned the adjacent territory. And it came to pass that this city, because of the excellence of the soil and the number of its inhabitants, grew swiftly. But after no very long period of prosperity, it was levelled to the ground and remained uninhabited down to our own times. The details of this matter I shall relate at the proper time. The Siciliote Diodorus says that this Zoilus wrote nothing in addition to the treatise against Homer of which we spoke. 3. Plutarch, Dionysius, Diodorus, and Dio give accounts of the Cators and the Scipios. 4. Book 8, 26. 5. Those who were left opposed one another. 6. Devoting himself to the mean life of a common soldier. 7. Men who had been carefully sought out by the king for their size and height, their keen daring, and their lordly manner. 8. Next in the procession came 800 frames on which costly panoplies were mounted. 9. The Romans built waterproof shelters and spent the winter there. 10. He constrained them to be soldiers by setting himself before them as a model. 11. Promising that they too would contribute to this undertaking. 12. Since in the face of these words the king was losing his grip and weakening, he allowed him to do what he pleased. 13. The barbarian, on being flogged, did not change expression or colour, but like a dumb beast, suffered in silence. 14. The wise man is superior to the strong. Upon the renewal of civil strife, the Roman Senate proposed that Sulla be granted dictatorial powers, for all the knights had banded together, wishing to rule rather than be ruled, and since they repeatedly attempted to oppose the Senate, the situation was intolerable to the government. Accordingly, Sulla, having again attained this office, made a secret agreement with men throughout Italy, unbeknown to anyone at Rome, and ordered them to arm themselves with daggers and enter the city at the time when the Roman people would be starting to celebrate the festival of Rhea. This normally occurs about the 1st of January, so that with their help he might destroy the urban knights. Since the Italian rabble was hostile to the soldiers, they duly appeared on the appointed day, began to riot, and by enlisting the help of the populace, did away with a large number of knights. While these events were taking place in the city, reports from the subject peoples everywhere reached Rome, announcing incursions of barbarians and suggesting that the Roman consuls and praetors should occupy their territories with all speed. I give this on the authority of Plutarch. Diodorus, however, says that no such reports existed and that Sulla concocted them as a means of distracting the people and ending the disorders. For he promptly enrolled all the armies and assigned them commanders, and thus rid the city of the whole multitude. Introductory note to the index. Tuus is primarily an index of names. Some few items dealing with economic, military, political, and religious matters have been included, but with these, the coverage is by no means complete. An effort has been made, however, to cover every occurrence of every proper name, including passages where the name is implied but not actually used. In the case of the larger geographical divisions, this has often been done by an inclusive reference covering the events of a year or more, sometimes with a word or phrase in parentheses after the reference suggesting the events of the period. It has seemed most convenient to place in a single article, under the name of a city or country, all the material dealing with that city or country and with its people, although this is contrary to Diodorus's usage. With him, Athens, for example, is a geographical area. It is always the Athenians who act, never Athens. Grouping the place and its people into a single article results in a mixture of singular and plural verbs, which the user may find disturbing. But this is, I think, better than forcing him to consult two more or less parallel articles. The index is based on the translation, and the spelling of certain names varies with the usage of the different translators. These variations are minor, and they very rarely cause any change in the position of the name in the alphabetical order. Diodorus' habitual inaccuracy in expressing Latin proper names presents a somewhat different problem. Here, if one followed the normal indexing practice of giving a name as the author gives it, a man who had held office 3 times might appear under 3 different names, no one of which would be recognized by a person searching for him. The only way of bringing order out of chaos seemed to be to list each man under his full and correct name as given by Broughton, magistrates of the Roman Republic, with cross-references from Diodorus' vagaries, where this seemed worthwhile. Men bearing the same name, either Greek or Roman, are given in chronological order or in order of first appearance. When the same name is found for persons and for places, the former are given precedence. References are by volume, Roman numerals, book, bold-faced Arabic, chapter and section, Arabic. Volume and book numbers are given only as needed, but chapter and section numbers are given for each item, the section number being given even if there is only one section in the chapter. In a few cases, and for various different reasons, the page of this edition has been added. For the complete books, the division into chapters is uniform in all the editions of the past century and a half, but there are minor variations in the section numbers, and one edition, Beeker, Tubner, 18,531,830,1854, lacks these numbers. For the fragments, there is no such uniformity. This edition follows the numbering introduced by the 308 introductory note to the Index Vogelfischer edition, Tubner, 1888, 8, 5, in books 6 through 10, and that of Dindorf's 4th edition, Tubner, 18,660, 1,861,868. A concordance following the index will make possible its use with the older editions, and also will make it easier to find in this edition fragments cited by the older numbering. Pi, to facilitate identifying items and locating items within the longer articles' dates, have been introduced where feasible. These are placed in parentheses, and each applies to the material following it up to the next date or to a full stop, period. For the complete books from 11 through 20, the dates are based on Diodorus's rather faulty division into archon years, the date printed being that of the calendar year in which the archon took office. For the fragments of the last 20 books, the very full dating supplied in the margin by Professor Walton has been followed. For the first 5 books, and for the fragments of the next 5, very few dates have been supplied. Obviously, few dates are possible for the first 6 books, but more might have been done in books 7 through 10. However, this index has been prepared with rather limited library facilities available, and no real effort has been made to go beyond what was to be found in Professor Oldfather's notes. It should be emphasized that the dates are not intended to give exact chronological information, but merely to make use of this somewhat cumbersome index a little easier. Table of Olympiads and of years. Diodorus begins his account of each year by giving the Athenian and Roman magistrates for that year, and in every 4th year he also gives the victor in the Stadian race at Olympia and the number of the Olympiad. In the following table, the Olympiad number is given in the first column. The second column gives the year BC, assigned by modern historians to the archon named by Diodorus, and also the year assigned to the named Roman magistrates by the conventional Roman chronological system, which is based ultimately upon Varro. When the magistrates are other than consuls, that is indicated immediately after the Roman date, the third column gives the point in Diodorus where his account of the year begins. Concordance of editions. The following table equates the numbering of the fragments in this edition, which is based on Vogelfischer, Leipzig, 1888 F, for books 6 to 10, and on Dindorf's 4th edition, Leipzig, 18,661,861,868 for books 20 to 40, with that of the only earlier editions in which the fragments are distributed among the books, Becker, 18,531,854, Dindendorf-Müller, 18,420,1,844. This will not only make this index usable with the earlier editions, but it will also facilitate locating in the present edition references using the other numbers. Minor variations in section division, usually inadvertent, are not noticed. Becker's edition lacks section numbers. Brackets with no number enclosed are used to indicate passages from other books, included without numbers among the fragments of books 6 to 10, but numbered in Dindorf and in Dorfmüller. In the last 20 books, there are a number of fragments not found in Dindorf, but added by Professor Walton. These are not distinguished in the concordance.